Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Transpicuous Views, the show that was almost canceled tonight. I almost canceled, and I put it on Facebook. Well, I don't know. I might have to just take a day off, family day. I had this feeling this morning. I was like, you know, maybe I just need to go into observer mode a little more, talk less, observe more. And of course, that only lasted for about 2 hours because it's me. And the one topic I wanted to talk about tonight, we may not get into. We're going to see how the rest of this goes, because the one topic I didn't want to talk about tonight is what we're going to talk about tonight. And that is all the financial stuff that we discussed on UnFuckIt Show on Wednesday night. So I want to give a little background to this. I want to back up a bit. And I put out on the UnFuckIt Discussion on Wednesday night, we talked about all this viral posts that are going around right now, and videos and information about accessing your value through your Treasury Direct, through Federal Reserve bank accounts that have been held in your name, through your birth certificate, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And we went through it, all the stuff. And I wanted to present it because in the Unfuckers room, everyone was going nuts. Everyone was asking questions. Everyone wanted to know what was going on. So I said, okay, well then we need to discuss it, put it on a show. We'll put the information out, lay it out. I just wanted to put the information out there so people had at least a base. That was it. That was literally going to be the conclusion of my input onto the subject, because it doesn't resonate with me. I am not interested in going down that avenue. Shane, okay, got it. Okay. And we'll make it, we will get into that in a little bit as well. What became apparent, what became very, very, very fucking apparent, is the fact that a lot of people, and what I'm seeing, it seems to me, is to be a lot of people who are just newly woken up to all this stuff, who are just kind of getting their feet wet into these areas, who have no experience, no understanding, no comprehension, no research, are all of a sudden gone, oh, yeah, wow, great, I want to do it. I'm going to get involved. I got to pay off my debts. I'm going to do all these things. And I made the mistake Wednesday night of giving out my email address, which is on the website anyway. It's on RTS Earth, but giving out my email address. And I got flooded with emails. And what came through was there were those people who were asking for specific information. Could you send me this link that was mentioned or something like that? But the vast majority of the emails I was getting were from people who obviously did not have any idea, who were saying things like, can you help me do this paperwork? Can you tell me what paperwork I should get? Can you tell me how I go about doing all this? And I was just like, whoa, 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 whoa. We have a big problem here. So I basically put out emails and started responding to emails, and I've given up. I'm 48 hours. I've been ignoring my emails for the last 48 hours. And I think there's about another 50 or 60 in there at least as of this morning. I started sending out emails saying basically all the information that I have at this moment is in the article that went along with the recording, where I put the links to all the websites who were getting into like the IUV.com and websites like that that are following all this information. So, and I've been watching very, very closely. And I'm seeing a lot of people getting pulled into this. And not just newer people who have just maybe, they weren't here for like the first few rounds of this game back in 2012 and before, or sorry, 2013 and before. But there was also a lot of people who were involved back in 2013 who already have gone down this route, getting pulled back in again. And I looked at it and I was like, oh, it bothers me. And I had to stand back and say to myself, okay, why does this bother you so much? Everyone, these are all people, they should all be grown-ups. They should all make their own choices. They should all be able to make their own choices about what it is they want to do. But it really bothered me. And I'm going to go further. It upset me. And yesterday, I watched. I didn't post much anywhere, but I watched in these various groups on Facebook, on Skype, and I watched the tone of how people were talking. And then this morning, I'd made the decision I was going to take a day off. I wasn't going to do the show today. I really just was going to take a break and just kind of sit in really, truly an observer mode and just not talk for a while. And then someone who I really care about made a post in the UnFuckers room asking about a very basic, simple question. Just saying, well, all these accounts, like, where does this money come from? And I read the responses that people were responding in. And it was like 1 out of 2 responses of people responding in showed that they had not a fucking clue either. It wasn't just this one person. The people who were responding and trying to give opinions had not a fucking clue. And I lost it. I literally fucking lost my shit. I went on full out rant, rage mode. And you guys all witnessed the UnFuckers. It was all caps. And apparently it got everyone's attention during the Essential Mentum program that Jill and Carl were doing, like, oh, Danny's in UnFuckers, and she's using all caps. We're all fuck. I don't yell very often. So I love all these people. I love all the UnFuckers. Like, truly do. I don't think you guys even comprehend that. And I have a very maternal feeling about our group. I really do. I can't help it. I just, that's the kind of feeling I have. And when I see people who I know are not even remotely prepared, even just considering it, even just considering getting involved in all this stuff about, the Treasury direct accounts and the Federal Reserve accounts, I lost my shit. Because I can't stand around and let people that I love get hurt. And that's where they're going on this. Now, I want to just clarify some stuff here. We have, you're funny, Cindy, very, very funny. We have some UnFuckers in the room who are going ahead with this. But I know the ones that are going ahead, and I know that they got fucking years of research behind them. Years. These people have put probably hundreds and hundreds of hours into the research on this. And for them, I stand behind them and I fucking applaud. Go for it. Go for it. If you feel moved, and I know that you've got the background, you got the balls, and you got the everything to go with this, go. Do it. Tear the fucking system apart if you want. It's not about people choosing to get involved. It's about people choosing to get involved without full comprehension and without full transparency of what they are getting involved with. And that, I'm sorry, I'm going to be mama hen, and I'm not going to stand for that shit. If, as I said, and I was screaming about, if you do not fully comprehend these accounts, where the money comes from, how it got there, who set it up, when, where, why, how, what, you are not ready to play this game. You are not ready to play this game, because this is not a game of copying someone else's homework, where you can say someone can post their exact steps that they did. This is not a kind of quiz where you can copy your friend's homework word for word and file it and expect to have the same outcome. It doesn't work that way. This is the big leagues. When you start fucking around dealing with Federal Reserve accounts, these Treasury direct accounts and all the rest of these, you are playing in the big fucking leagues with the big boys. And they don't follow the law. Okay? That was half of the reason why I got so much information out there about what happened to Randy. Randy was arrested, he was beaten, he was thrown into jail under false pretenses, under traffic violations. Six FBI agents take down a guy for traffic violations. That's what they finally got him on. That's what they held him on. I put that out there because I wanted people to get an understanding of this is the kind of shit we're talking about now. There's another aspect to this, and I was talking about this just before we went live. And there's very, very much an energetic aspect to this. And we saw this with the courtesy notices back in 2013. There were people, and I know several people, in the US, in Canada, and in Europe, who took those courtesy notices when they came out, when Chris Hales and Scott and Ken Bartle put those out, and took the OPPT filings that Heather did, and they went up against the system, and they stomped on the fucking system. And I mean, big ass fucking boots, make the judge bleed through his fucking eyeballs, stomped on the system. One woman, every judge in her county had to recuse themselves. They held it up in court for 1.5 years. But she fucking stomped on the system until they fucking gave her all her mortgages, all of her debts, and we're just like, please just go away. Please, 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 just go away. But every single one of these people who had these kind of wins, when the courtesy notices and the OPPT filings came out, these people had already been doing this for years. They had already been researching this for years. They had all the background knowledge. So when they saw the filings, when they saw the courtesy notices, all it was an extra fucking screwdriver to add to their toolkit, because they had all the fucking tools already. And all it was the icing on the cake. And they walked in, and because they knew their shit, when they walked into that courthouse, there is an energetic field that comes off these people, and the bailiffs and the judges take one look and go, oh, we're so fucked. This person knows their shit. This person actually fully knows, comprehends, and is going to rip us a new asshole. When another person can walk in, they could use the same arguments word for word, and we saw it happen. And they lose within 10 minutes of the case opening. And because they don't understand, they don't comprehend. So when they walk into that court, they don't come in with that same energetic, in your face, massive field that says you are not going to fuck with me, because they don't comprehend what the hell they're doing. Exactly, Dawn. It's called owning it. And when you know this shit, you own this shit. 99% of the people in Unfuckers, you do not own this shit. You have no clue what it is you're even thinking about meddling in. And I'm going to be Mama Bear, and I'm going to point this out. And that is one of the reasons why I wanted to fucking talk about this. I get it. We're desperate. Everyone's fucking desperate. Everyone is real fucking desperate right now. And I understand that we all have those daydreams when you sit there and go, if I was, if the RV was to happen, Miss Sarah, fucking access my accounts, I would build community centers. I would start massive community gardens and permaculture, and I would do, and people have these amazing, amazing plans that come right from their hearts. It's not about greed. It's not about people going, oh, I want my money. No, this is people who want to do good and want to help their families and help everyone else. I get it. This is, until you are ready to stand in full responsibility with a clear comprehension of exactly what you're doing and why, you are not ready to take this step. Now, one of the things that bothers me about this, about the way this is pushed out, the way this has gone, oh, like a tidal wave over the internet, is it feels like a distraction. It feels like trying to pull people back in again, pull them back into this realm over here. Focus on this. And you may have all, like I said, the best intentions of the world, but it feels like it is trying to siphon off a lot of the forward energy and momentum that's going on right now into a side trip. Now, one of the other big problems with this is there's a massive amount of information lacking. There's quite a few people out there right now talking about this stuff. And they're speaking from a position of perceived experience and knowledge. And yet, none of these people are fully presenting every piece of the information. There are holes in the information. Like I said, you could drive a Mack truck through these holes. And that is one of the things that I want to talk about tonight. I have, joining us tonight, and you guys all know the voice when it joins in. Oi, Ben, are you there?
Shut up.
Are you awake?
Yeah, I was just lighting a joint.
Oh, shh, come on, dude. So, Ben and I had a long conversation today.
Self-medicating.
Okay, well, you self-medicate. I'm self-medicating with caffeine.
I've got both of them going on.
Now I would get an ice pack and try and self-medicate with that too, but unfortunately I don't. Ben and I had a really, really long conversation today, talking about the missing pieces, because some of them are fucking blatant. Really, really blatant. And if these purported so-called professionals, gurus, etc., are not talking about these pieces, I want to know why. So one of the big ones, and I want to open this up right off the bat, Ben, is the between public and private.
Yeah.
And we've discussed this. We've discussed this on shows, like for the last year and a half, we've discussed this on shows. The difference between public banking and private banking. Public law and private law. And the chickens are all waking up. Are your roosters waking up there, Ben?
Yeah. Are you having deja vu?
I am kind of having a deja vu. Wait, is that Reginald I hear?
No, we've got the Colonel, Henry, and Elvis.
You have a rooster named Elvis.
Yeah, but you got to see him and you understand.
Ah, okay. Well, I'll take your word for it, unless you're going to send us pictures.
Anyway, that's a whole other topic.
Yeah. So I want you to do me a favor. Let's talk about the public and private thing, because you have done more research on this than anyone I personally know.
Well, I think that the best place to start is kind of explaining the whole thing, right? So there was a system that was created by whoever.
Pick a name.
And from my research, what it actually shows is the system is a fabrication or an overlay or a mirroring of another set of codes, right? Now, through that mirroring, what they were able to do is get us to sign in, right, into that system. Now, whether the system was initially set up to be evil or was set up as a tool is still kind of open to debate, because once again, depending on how you utilize the system and what tools you utilize, depends on what you're doing, right?
Yep.
So, and through what I've found, essentially, the stories are true. Everything is basically attached to your birth certificate. Why? Because that's the first document that the government issues you to receive benefits and privileges. Those two things being quite, the operative words in what I said, as opposed to your what I guess are known as your inherent rights, which is basically your private side, which is all the things that you need to do and be able to do to live, essentially.
Yep.
In the system, they created all these other tools that were supposed to be used and utilized to perform acts in the system, not in your private life. But through subversion and distraction and all the rest of it, things have been portrayed as something that they're not. And what I mean by that is things like a bank account and a driver's license and a registration. And when I say registration, that means car, marriage, business,
birth.
Yeah, exactly. And all those things are tools, but depending on what they're attached to, like what we're looking at with what we're looking at speaking about with this new stuff, is depending on how the tools are put together, depends on how the codes work. Now, if you're not using the codes right, then you're basically not the representative that you're claiming to be in the position. And what I mean by that is if you put in these digits, and I'll give you an exact example. So I was transferring some money today to stop some government people cancelling one of my registrations. And I was doing it from a private bank account to a normal bank account. So my normal bank account has certain digits, and when I put them in, of course, my bank goes, the BSB's not recognised. And the BSB in Australia is exactly the same as what a routing number is, except a BSB is attached to the bank within the state or in the country, right? Yeah. A routing number is sort of an international thing. Now, it said it didn't recognise it, so then I logged in to go and find my actual BSB number, and then I find that the BSB number is contained within the account number, but it's not the same. And then there's a couple of digits in the front and a couple of the digits in the back that are different, and they're directing codes. So basically saying which authorization you have and where things are coming from and that sort of stuff. Now, I guess the long and short of that side of it is we still don't completely comprehend what all these numbers mean, where all these numbers are attached to, and the likes. So there's a lot more of the understanding to that. But back to the sort of main crux of the story is there are all these tools. The tools are all public. The tools are all attached to certain legislative or statutorial codes, and therefore those codes dictate the jurisdiction of the tool. To cut the long and short. And now we're playing with probably the biggest tool there is, which is in the finance.
Okay,
and
so pause right there.
Yes.
Pause right there.
Yes.
Okay, all you unfuckers who are here live, how many of you just understood what Ben just said?
Yeah.
I'm trying to make a point here.
Yeah,
totally. I did, Danny.
Okay, and you know what? There's a bunch of you that I know, because I know who you are and I know what your backgrounds are, that I know you get it. But there's going to be a lot of people who are not going to comprehend that piece of information right there. And it's vital. Because if you
the
don't
other thing
comprehend
too, the other thing too is I've spent a long time trying to be able to deliver what we're talking about now. So we're only basically talking, that story was just bringing it into where we're at with what we're dealing with.
Yeah.
Because we can go way further back.
and we may touch on
but
that.
we don't need to because that see, one of the big things that I've learned is you have content and you have process. And what I see across the board, and I'm not talking about what we're talking about now, I see across the board, I mean worldwide, all the factions, all the cults, all the groups, all the isms, all the ists and everything like that, is what happens is everyone gets caught up in the content. And that's where everyone decompartmentalizes. Whereas if everyone looked and threw the content away and from those contents actually realize what the process was, the process is the same across the board. Does not matter what you're doing or who you're dealing with and what jurisdiction. Across the board, the process is the same. And when people start realizing what the process is, they'll all start being able to unite the way that I see it. Because there is only one thing that's faulting this.
Yeah. But this is the problem. We have a lot of talking heads who are not uniting under the process. They are not bringing their information together. And they're leaving pieces out. It's like this one focuses on this one specific aspect. This one focuses on this aspect. Someone else focuses on this aspect. And the problem is it, unless that information is all brought together and all the holes are filled in, we're no step closer. We're not any closer.
But see, D, at the same time, that's also the other thing, is all these decompartmentalized processes, when they all started getting worked out, they kind of all were united. But what I've seen happen is, because of the way that the system's set up, everyone wants their piece, so then they make their piece subjective. E.g., they make it to themselves, and when you make it to yourself and not the whole, it becomes something else. And when it becomes something else, it's very hard for other people to use. Like, we're working with a water wizard and all this sort of stuff, right, at the moment. And the stuff he screws with, it's like you walk into the room and it changes it. Literally. Yeah. The whole process changes it. And that's why you're walking in the room. So when people make these topics subjective, the energy's different as well.
I agree.
And that's the other side of it. Because, you know, if it doesn't work for the whole, or my saying is if it doesn't work on the fringe, it doesn't fucking work.
Yeah.
We're fringe dwellers, so it's got to work for us before it works for anybody else.
We are fringe dwellers and we are proud. We are proud fringe dwellers. Okay, so I want to go into...
This whole new project is the fringe unit.
Yeah, I know. And that's another whole show. You and I are going to get into that one on another whole show. Let's keep focused right now, because you and I are bad together, because we go off on tangents and it gets really insane.
Yeah, no, it's cool. It's cool.
But I want to get back to the public-private thing. Because this is a foundational piece that people need to understand.
Yeah.
And you can't cross. They're two separate entities.
And it's so easy to cross.
It is, and it takes a word. It can take a single word to cross from one into the other. And you may not even know what the word is. Because they're real good, the courts are real good at tricking people and tripping people into uttering just one step that takes them out of the private into the public. And then all the rules out the door. Because for private and public, completely different rules, completely different mandate, completely different what you're fucking dealing with. Yeah, Dean Clifford does come to mind. Absolutely. So can you give just a real basic rundown of the difference
of public and private?
Yeah.
Oh, well, okay, this show's kind of a perfect example right now. Technically, it's private. And like if we were doing this, let's say on Skype, it wouldn't be. Zoom's created to do private chats, private rooms, that now. That's not to say that
you have a live stream going, so technically it's not.
Yeah, oh, okay, well there you go. So there you go.
If we were in this room,
so there you go.
In this room, and it wasn't a show, and it was like Danny says, everyone come on in, let's have a chit chat.
Mm-hmm.
It would be private.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And therefore, right now we're public.
Right now we're public.
And that's basically the difference. Like, that is basically the difference. It's the same with things like trust law. You know, a trust is created because someone has an idea and gets some people that want to fulfill that idea. That's what a trust is. You create a new entity to do that function. So when you are doing your business, your life, that's private. The minute that you, let's say, take a photo on Facebook or Snapchat or Twitter or whatever, that's public. You've just made that public. So in the aspects of should someone be looking for you or something like that, you've just announced where you are and you've made it public.
Mm-hmm.
You put your hand up, D.
I want to point something out on exactly that point now.
Public.
You muted me. I got muted. It's okay. I just got muted by accident. I'm so glad you brought that up because this is a specific point that I want to bring up. And this, when I talk about distraction, and in some ways, how do I say this in a very, without ranting? There were people who have been working along on this quietly, behind the scenes, working out all these pieces, doing their private business, privately going through. Now, I spoke to 3 that I know of. One in particular has been doing this quietly working through this for 3 months now, paying off her bills, making some purchases, doing it carefully, like, you know, like not making a big splash, not going and taking out $5 million CDs, quietly. When all this shit went public, all over Facebook, everything that she's done for the last 3 months has just been returned, has just been reversed. Even things that she did, payments she made 3 months ago that obviously have fully gone through, have now all been reversed. Why? Number one, I'm pretty sure I know that this person was publicly talking about it. When all this stuff started happening, I have a feeling she got involved in some of the Facebook groups and fucking talked. The moment you talk on Facebook, on Skype, in a group, it is now public. It is no longer private. We talked about this, Ben, fucking a year and a half ago. We talked about the fact of like the moment stuff like this, when certain pieces get worked out. I can remember us having a conversation. It was on one of the One People shows. It may have even been in late 2015. And we talked about, because you were working on a piece at the time. And we said, when and if this piece gets worked out, the information will be shared, but it will be shared in a private setting. It will be shared with people privately, in very small little groups, private conversation. It will not be shared on shows. It will not be publicized, because the moment it is, it goes from the private into the public, and all the rules are fucking changed. Now, this goes into the discussion that we had on the current of money discussion that we had a few weeks ago. And John Carl and Carl were talking about even the thing about the hat with the judge. And the judge changed their hat. Why is that? Because you just went from the public to the private. And when the judge goes from public to private, it goes out of the public court, it goes into chambers, and either the hat's removed or something is changed, because now you have changed everything. And this is a trap that people are getting caught in. Big time.
Yep.
Do you want to add anything more on that one specific topic, Ben, about the public-private stuff?
It's like understanding the difference, or comprehending the difference between understanding and comprehension.
Yes.
So, the word understanding has a differential definition depending on where it's coming from.
Yep.
Comprehend means to get something. It doesn't mean like, oh yeah, I know what you mean. It means like, yeah, I comprehend it. I got that shit.
I grok that shit. Thanks, Carl. I love that word. I grok it. Comprehend, grok.
Yeah, but see, then what the hell is that word grok? I've seen it coming up.
That is Robert Heinlein, Stranger in a Strange Land, one of the best books ever fucking written. And grok is a Martian word that Michael Valentine Smith uses. And it means to comprehend, but it doesn't just mean to comprehend. It means that you get it. Like in every way, shape, or form. From like mentally, emotionally, spiritually, like you fully get the entire thing to grok.
And that's the thing is to be private is to be private. It doesn't mean that you don't have tools to use in the system. It means that you comprehend that you have tools to use in the system.
And what the system is. And when you're crossing back and forth between them.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and that's the thing is like, when we've all this group has spoken about, layers and fucking dimensions and time zones and fucking this and that and the other thing. And it's like, don't just think that exists in the astral or the ethereal or the energetic or spiritual, whatever you want to call it, because like the stuff that I've been researching is the shit that's written, and you can't make this shit up. You know what I mean? Like the stuff that I've been putting together is the stories they've left. It doesn't matter whether they're allegory or any of those sort of things, because there's a process. That shit's content. So when you start working out the process, then you get private and public. And then you can start using them, because public is a tool.
Yep.
It's a tool of the system. That's where marketing and media and all that stuff is. Politics. That's what that is. Yeah. So it's actually being private and getting it. And I think me and my partner had this conversation the other day, and she was like, "Are we crazier than most?" And I was like, "Oh, it depends on what you mean by crazy."
It depends
and
on
I said,
by most. No, not at all.
Yeah, because we live in the bush now. Like we've always sort of lived in the bush, but we live in the bush now. And I was like, no, this is just that feeling that you get when you realize, it's not just a walk down to the shop.
If you need to go to town, it's a day's trip.
Well, you know, like if we don't get sun, we have to have fire. To have fire, we have to have wood. To have, you know, and dry wood too. And we've had a lot of rain.
Yeah.
So, and that's just that.
Yeah.
And I know that's way off of the economic side of it, but this is what I'm talking about. There's private and there's public. The minute that now I have announced that I've been chopping wood, I've just made it public that I've been chopping wood.
You're a lumberjack. Just always wanted to wear that flannel shirt. I know you.
Yeah, but that's kind of what it is, you know. Like, yeah, and then comprehending what that public means. Like the minute that you set foot in that city, understand that it's under CCTV and da 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 da, and that the fucking council owns those that pavement and blah blah blah. And yeah, you can exercise your right to movement and your right to travel freely and all these sorts of things. However, you know, and there are tools to do that within that. But the minute that you step into that, they've got you.
Yep. And that's just it, right? So this is, I want to use this as an example. Now, I have not spoken to anyone about Randy, and I've forgotten what Randy's last name is. I'm really, really sorry.
Bean.
Randy Bean, thank you. Randall Bean, who's the gentleman we discussed on Wednesday night's UnFuckIt Discussion, who was arrested. I have not spoken to anyone one-on-one to get more details other than what you heard Wednesday night. I'm going to make an assumption or a presumption that when all these things were arranged, and there are the recordings, and we put them out, they were linked into the article with the phone calls between him and the dealership, the RV dealership, and the guy for the bank that the RV dealership dealt with, et cetera, et cetera. They were dealing in the private. He sat down, he filed paperwork, he presented it to them, they went through, it was done privately. It was not done in a court of law, a public court of law. It was not done in a public bank. It was a private negotiation. Papers were put in, there was an agreement was come to by all the parties concerned, and a deal was made. It was private. Now, I don't know, because I really did not follow all that shit as it played out. But I am going to hypothesize that at some point from the time the initial paperwork was going through and they were making this, that there's a good chance that Randy or someone else on his behalf began speaking about it publicly. And at which point, I personally believe, and like I said, I have no proof, this is just my own assumption, the reason he was taken down, besides being being made an example of, is because he then crossed a private negotiation, a private deal was then made public, which makes everything 100% void and null, to the best of my understanding. And I've seen it, like I said, in other places. Other people I know who've had no problems using these tools. Like Ben said, they had the tool, they used it, they were using it just fine. And then when everything went public, that's when it all went pear-shaped. So, there are other considerations in this. And that is the trust. Thank you, Mia. Exactly. The trust. And again, Ben, I know that's something that you've done a huge amount of research in, of looking at things from the point of setting up a private trust, which is, again, in the private. Correct?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, the only way you set up a private trust is basically you set up a private trust, which is, like I say, it's between you, me, and someone else.
Yeah.
You don't have to register a trust. There's no laws that state that they need to be registered and all that sort of stuff. But then without registering a trust, e.g. opening a bank account for that trust, it's hard for that trust to hold stuff. So essentially, it all goes back into the system at the moment, regardless, whether it's a private court filing, whether it's an account with a bank. The difference between a trust and the other tools, like, using your birth certificate or driver's license to open a bank account, is you're creating a new entity. And therefore, people are acting on and for that entity. So it's much like what we're dealing with in like I say, there's the layers become very transparent when you start really looking at it. It's like a corporate structure, but not like your ABN, like in Australia, where you're a sole trader. I'm talking about corporate as in business. So you set up a PTY limited, a proprietary limited. And that proprietary limited has, a board or whatever, and that board are acting on behalf of the charter for that company. So that company becomes an entity, like a person. You see what I mean? And it's just the process is the same all the way through. However, you're acting on behalf of this other thing. So this other thing then becomes accountable, unless you've broken the rules of that other thing.
Unless you break the rules, in which case it all goes out the window. Yeah, it all goes out the window. It's funny because someone just brought up about even the signature and what color ink you use. Even this kind of stuff can be the little trip ups. That's why they always tell you to sign government documents. They'll say, please sign this in blue ink, because blue ink has a completely different meaning than signing it in red ink or purple ink, which is what I always use because I like to read. I always sign in purple. I used to carry purple pens around in my bag all the time. My current passport is signed with purple ink.
There's all those pieces, right? There's all those pieces, and that's the other side of it. Just remember, like, there is the Queen's English, and there is a way that it's supposed to be used, and that's where, like, the most famous one is the word including. And that's why you see in legal jargon it says including but not limited to all the time, because the minute it just says including, everything prior to that including is null and void. Unless the sentence is written correctly prior to it.
And these are the little things. And when you're dealing with this in this realm, each one of those little things is a major thing. Because you can be fucked by that single word, including. Because you don't understand. You don't comprehend.
You don't grok it.
You don't grok what that word means. So there's a lot of aspects to this. And
but if you look at the process, that's the whole thing. Like, don't get caught up that it's across the board, because the process is the same. It doesn't matter what it is. So the process basically has been to get us to sign into certain things, to access certain things in certain ways. That's what it is. So it's it's just learning how to act in certain ways.
And to identify when you have to change what you're doing, and when you have to, and these are the subtle nuances that are missed unless you've been at this for a long, long time. Now, I use the example, and we talked about this back on the roundtable One People show, like 2013. Heather Tucci Giraffe had someone she worked with, a guy named Miles, and he did this stuff, and he did this pretty much perfectly. As a matter of fact, he walked into court 21 times and won 21 times. On the 22nd time when he walked into court, they fucked him with one question. They asked him a question that was so bizarre, so not what he expected, that without thinking, he answered that question. And they had him with one word. His word was yes. They asked, do you have your passport? Or do you have a passport? I can't remember how it was worded. I'm good. I'm just like, this was years ago. And he answered yes. And at that point, he got tossed in jail. They literally, the judge put a smile on his face and was like, gotcha. This is a guy who's done this 21 times and won. And I mean, doing this kind of stuff and won. One word. That's all it takes. One word. Yeah, I don't know. I think we've covered off all that kind of stuff. Is there anything else you want to add to this whole part of the discussion?
Only that anyone that may have worked out what's going on has gone private. So you probably won't hear from them.
Yeah.
But that statement is not me like announcing that no one's going to hear from me because I've worked it out, because I fucking haven't. I'm just going to say that, like, on and for the record. But that's the whole thing, right? Is like comprehend that. Comprehend the fact that if someone says they've worked it out and they don't lay it out step by step for you to be able to do it simply, they don't know shit. Like that's the whole thing, right? Because life isn't hard. It's not meant to be. That's the whole thing. The system is complicated because it's complicated. It's there, you know. I guess it's a tool. So you got to learn the master of that craft.
Yeah.
Now we do need to interact in that, but that also can be made minimal. So, you know, act cautiously, but don't be scared.
Yeah.
But know stuff. Know it.
And okay, and that's what someone wanted to just further on that is exactly that. Don't be scared. A lot of people, and I'm watching it, and like I said, I'm watching the discussions happen. I'm in a couple of these Skype rooms, and I'm watching. And I'm watching some of the known people saying things that fall back out of the mouth, kind of like, oh, don't be afraid of this. You don't, you know, it's not about fear. You can't be afraid. You got to be strong. And this is not about fear. And I actually find it very, very insulting. If someone says, I'm not going to do this, and someone says to that person, oh, you know, you should, you know, it's not about fear. You can't be afraid of this. You got to move with it. And we're going to, no, that's fucking bullshit. You have every right to be afraid of something, because maybe that fear is telling you you don't comprehend it. You don't grok it in its complexity, and you're not ready to take that step. I'm sick and tired of hearing this word fear is thrown at people as like an accusation. Fear is also something we fear, or sorry, something we feel sometimes when there's a reason for it. If you're out walking in the forest and you're in Canada and you smell bear, let me tell you about fear. Let me tell you about fear. You can't miss that smell. If you've ever smelled bear, you know the smell of bear. And you fear it. And you can understand and comprehend and all the rest of it. Fear comes for a reason as well. Like sometimes fear gives us a note that says, you're not ready for this. There's something here that you're just not comfortable with. And why are you not comfortable with? Well, maybe the reason you're not comfortable with it goes way beyond fear. It goes into completely other areas.
that's the whole other side of things, right, D? That's like, where are we and what's going on? Like, this is what I mean, is like, it all comes, like, it's just a fucking one big loop. The processes are replicated in the same, like, in everything. Yeah, like, fear, what is it? It's a chemical reaction. What's it trying to let you know? How do you utilize that tool? Because fear essentially comes through an adrenal rush, right? So it's adrenaline. So it's the same thing that you get when you get really excited. So if you learn to turn that fear, as in scared fear, into the adrenaline rush that you get from like a really exhilarating moment, you can utilize it in a different way, as opposed to turning around, running into the tree, and then the bear eating you.
Exactly. Absolutely. And yeah. There was one other thing I wanted to mention on this, and now I've completely got sidetracked with talking about bears. I've completely forgotten where I was going with the next piece. Okay. Well, you know what? I don't know. Guys, I have said what I wanted to say. Oh, there's the one piece I wanted to add. Everyone take 10 seconds right now, 20 seconds, however many seconds you need. I want everyone to think about what you were focused on, what you were working on, what you were doing, what was really triggering an interest in you right before this shit happened, right before this all became public, right before this became a viral movement across the internet and Facebook, etc. What were you doing? What were you researching? What was your focus in that moment? Okay. Kaya, nothing financial. Yep. Connecting to nature, electromagnetics, going home, community.
Just remember that there is heaps and heaps and heaps of cool stuff going on privately. Yeah. I can vouch for that shit.
Yeah.
Like there.
For me, Danny, it was the 1896 stuff I was looking at. Okay.
Yep. Okay, so here's the thing. Whatever you were focusing on just before all this, let's say in a week ago, 2 weeks ago, because that's about how long this has really been raging out there in internet land. What have you done about it since this has all happened? Where has your attention gone to? Has your attention been shifted off of what you were working on and to look over this? The finances, this question about gaining access, blah, 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 blah. Oh, I love hearing this from you guys. Lots of no's and no's and no's. Okay? Because this is something I wanted to talk about. Yeah, and it was and for a lot of people, Philip, it was a small distraction. I can't help but feel that this was one of those pieces that was a distraction. In that, it took a lot of attention off of, you go, Groot, go for your walk.
To get them off the couch.
Yes, I know. You go. Never mind you.
Dad said he was doing it with brush.
Yes, I love it.
And he went up.
It took the attention off a lot of topics we were talking about that we were really digging into, community being one of them, moving forward, etc., etc. I'm not saying that it is a distraction. I'm giving my perception as far as what I saw, as far as looking at everyone in the public realm there. We'll get UnFuckers group. Looking at all of a sudden how many comments, how many conversations, how many things turned to that subject. And just scrolling through Facebook. Well, you go through your wall and you scroll through it. And how many posts now had something to do with this topic, whether it was pro or against, for or against. Because even if you're against it, even if people were out there going, no, this is all wrong. People taking sides even, like, no, Anna von Reitz is right. No, Heather Antucci Giraffe is right. No, someone else is right. Oh, we got to look at David Wynn Miller. No, and Winston Trout, and blah, 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 blah. It was everywhere. That to me is a warning sign. Whenever I see something go viral like that so fast, I'm not saying it was a distraction. I'm not saying it is a distraction, but there's something to that. And the other thing is, and I commented on this on Wednesday night, one of my biggest questions is that in going after these accounts, making these moves, is it a form of recontracting? Heather gave a response that from the legal side, every contract is void and null unless it's fully transparent and full disclosure, et cetera, et cetera. So therefore it's not. But it doesn't matter. The legal definition doesn't matter when the courts and the banks throw that shit out and don't follow it. Because we know that implied consent happens to us every fucking day. When you get your phone bill and you don't read the little terms and conditions that are written in like a 1-point font on the back of the frickin' bill, when anything that you sign, you're going to use Google Chrome, but here's the terms and conditions. You're going to use PayPal, here's the terms and conditions. Here you're going to use, they take implied consent continuously every day, all day, doesn't matter where you are in the world. Once you sign that once, everything else from then on in, they will take implied consent unless you take a proactive actions and actually start, going through every single piece. In a perfect world, that form of consent is illegal. But unfortunately, we're not in a perfect world. And right now, it's used every day. So that is a concern that I have about this. And it's one of my pieces, and it's quite frankly, the one reason why I won't do this is because I feel pretty strongly that I don't want to recontract into that system. I've already given my I do not consent. And I stand by that I do not consent. And I will just have to work using other tools. So yeah, exactly. Okay, listen, guys, I know everyone's saying, can we get Anna von Reitz and Heather Antucci Giraffe on in a conversation? Never going to happen. And even if we did, it wouldn't help us. Both of them are very, very good at talking. Neither of them are very good at listening. Sorry, that's just the way it is. They have their own firm opinions of how things are, and there's no moving either one of them from their views. So in which case, really all it is a debate, and a debate is not what we need. We need a coming together. It's not about someone saying this is the way it is and someone else saying, no, this is the way it is. We need people who are going to come together and actually put the knowledge, their experience, etc., on the table and put all the cards out and say, okay, now let's reshuffle and let's figure out what we've got here.